I'm a few days late on getting this uploaded and recorded and everything, but yeah, this is gonna be my review of Ringo Starr's new album, Give More Love, which ironically I don't actually have my physical copy of here yet. I don't know why it's been delayed in the mail. I had it on pre-order from Amazon, so why it's not here, I'd love to know, but, you know, if you want to see what the album cover looks like, I'll try and put it in the thumbnail of this or something, or you could Google it. One or the other. But yeah, I figured, even though the way that I film my videos, I'm too close up to the camera to even see, just, you know, for completion's sake, I have one of my Star shirts on. Not even one of my Ringo shirts, just a Star shirt. I don't know, it felt appropriate. So, now I have my notes for this, practically script written out on my computer right here, so I'll largely be reading off of my screen, admittedly, so I mean, if it looks weird for that, that's why, but yeah, I want to make sure I don't get too far off the point rambly, even though I do have a lot of thoughts and everything for this album, so just thought I'd throw that out there too. But anyway, so first off, let me just say, I'm actually kind of shocked that this album doesn't suck. That sounds so mean. That sounds so mean. But honestly, like, basically all his albums since the Choose Love album have been really lackluster and pretty forgettable, honestly. Like, that sounds, again, so mean. But honestly, can any of you guys think of much of any noteworthy tracks from anything in between those 2 points? Other than, like, Liverpool 8, just because he made such a big deal out of it? I bet you probably can't. I can't either, and I'm a Ringo fan. I have every album he's ever done, and yeah, that's pretty bad when even I'm like, those were really forgettable albums. But yeah, so honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect with this one. Initially, when I heard he was even doing another album, I was thinking, oh god, another one! I was expecting more of the same, of the sort of stuff he's been putting out the past few years. And then he dropped the We're on the Road Again track early. Actually, it happened to be on my cousin's wedding day. I think I have something about that in the notes on here. I was just shocked that it didn't suck. I was like, not only does it not suck, it's good. How long has it been since Ringo has given us something actually good? Like, holy shit. So I was like, alright, you know what? Fair enough. I will go into this album with an open mind, and I will be very hopeful that it's gonna be more of the same. So, album's finally out. I decided to listen to the digital copies, both through Amazon that you get when you buy a CD through them, brand new, pre-order, blah blah blah, and through Spotify. I don't know why I felt the need to flip-flop between the two, but I have. But anyway, so, this is probably gonna be like jump cut together as I read through my notes on here, so we're gonna go through it track by track. Okay, so, first track on here is the one that I just mentioned, We're on the Road Again. And first things first, the title made me think of the Willie Nelson song, On the Road Again, so I kinda half expected it to be a cover of that. And it's not. Most of the song titles on this album either share a name with a song that already exists, or they just make you think of another song, or something else. I'm not sure if it was intentional, or if it was like a reverse on his old habit where he'd write a song and find out that the tune of it was totally something else that already exists, and this was like a running joke through the Beatle years for the other three of, oh look, he's written another one, and oh hey, you just rewrote Mac the Knife, but you know, that sort of thing. I don't know if he was aware of it, maybe he did it on purpose. I don't know, but it's like a common theme throughout the whole album, so I'll probably be doing like my own word association thing of what each track makes me think of, both by title and how it sounds, because there's a lot of similarities throughout it, both just in the names and in the way that a lot of them sound. So I thought it was really interesting just with this album, since he hasn't done it to this degree, I don't think, ever. So just saying, imagine my surprise. First time I hit play on this, and I was expecting the Willie Nelson song. And then that guitar comes, like, ripping in, and my hair was standing on end, like, holy shit, what is this? Because you go into it expecting one thing, and you get something so polarity opposite from it. It's just like, damn, alright, you have my attention. You have my undivided attention, Ringo. But yeah, if you don't pay too much attention to the lyrics in it. Musically, it's probably one of the most solid tracks, not only on the album, but again, since as far back as the Choose Love album, which came out in 2005. That's a long, dry spell for quality material, if you ask me. But, I mean, you know, I'm just happy to have anything that's good from Ringo again, since it was getting to a point where it was almost embarrassing admitting that, you know, I follow his solo career as closely as I do, and yet, what do I have to show for what he's done lately? I don't know. But anyway, the lyrics aren't bad either, by any means. Just, it's one of his old mainstays. He's fallen back on many, many times where he does autobiographical lyrics. This one's about the recording process and touring, and even his song Photograph gets a name drop in it, which actually later on in the album, I think it's the last track even, he redoes Photograph on the album, so I guess, you know, it's a nice touch in the context of the song and that he revisited it for this. But, granted, they're pretty simple lyrics, and technically they could be polished up, but if they had that, I think it would lose some of the simplistic Ringo charm that is songs he's written. I mean, you can always tell a mile away the songs Ringo himself has written, and the ones somebody's either helped him with or wrote for him, and even though he's the one who got all the credit, the lyrics were written by someone else. So you can always tell. But I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just, his songs have a certain feel to them. They always have. And maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't know. Just, I've always been able to tell a mile away, even without looking at the album liner notes or anything, throughout his whole solo career, of which ones were his and which ones aren't. Hold on, I need to take a sip. I've already got some dry mouth because I'm talking so much. But yeah, I mean, I feel like for him, this approach works. For somebody else, maybe not, but in Ringo's case, it does. But, yeah, it dropped on my cousin's wedding day, and all throughout the whole day, all I could think of was just, holy shit, Ringo made a good song. I kept wanting to tell people about it, but it didn't feel appropriate at her wedding, of all things, to just be yammering on about Ringo, of all people. But I did tweet at him, though, that, you know, he dropped it on her wedding day, and she's a fan, too, so, you know, nice touch, even though he had no way of knowing that, and it definitely wasn't for that or anything, it just worked out that way, but I thought it was pretty cool anyway. So, anyway, let me find where in my notes I have not already said this stuff. But yeah, I feel like this track in particular, this is more like the Ringo material I grew up loving, which, I mean, I realize I started out at a weird spot in his solo career of where I jumped in at. When I started getting into his solo stuff was around the time that the Vertical Man album came out, which I guess a lot of veteran Beatle fans view as being forgettable, but I guess, I don't know if it's nostalgia or if it actually was that solid, but I mean, for me, I've always loved that album. But, and then I backpedaled to go to, like, his strongest solo albums, and from there branched out into everything else. So, and I've followed along as newer ones have come out. But yeah, I don't know, it just got me really super excited for the rest of the album, hoping that it might be another Vertical Man, or another Ringo Rama, or another, just any of the really good ones. But, I mean, I wouldn't compare it to his self-titled album, but, I mean, of the quality, like, later years albums that were good, I would put it on par with them for sure. And also in the middle of the track, if you pay close attention, you can hear some subtle Paul McCartney vocals in there. I mean, they really buried them in there. If you pay attention, you can hear them, but I could see where, he'd want it to be subtle so that it doesn't become the Paul McCartney show and people are just showing up to hear him. There have been tracks in the past on some of his other albums where it's more noticeable, but this one, it's subtle, but it's a nice touch once you notice it. I didn't catch it the first time through, actually. Admittedly, I actually didn't know that was one of the tracks he was on. I knew he's on the album, I just didn't know where. So that made my job easy when I found out it's the very first one on the album. Oh, well, check that off the list of things to look for. I mean, it's kind of like a musical, Where's Waldo for me. But, anyway. Yeah, it's kind of like in the middle section of the song, and it's very brief. But again, pay attention for it. You'll find it. So, anyway, it makes the very ending of the song that much more appropriate that he had Paul on this particular track, because the way the song ends is basically like a direct rip from the ending of Twist and Shout. I mean, argue me on that all you like, but you go back and you listen to it and tell me it's not. It is exactly the same ending as Twist and Shout. And I just personally, I love it when he throws little Beatle-y nods into his solo career, because I know a lot of his solo career has consisted of him trying to break away from the Beatle mold and wanting to do something completely different so that it's not just like him riding the coattails of his own career forever, to the point where I think it was on, was it Ringo Rama, or is it the one right after that? Whichever one had Elizabeth Raines on it. Mark Hudson had originally written part of it much differently, and Ringo was upset that it sounded too Beatle-y, so they had to change it. So, I mean, there's a fine line with Ringo where he's willing to dance up to it to a certain degree, but he also doesn't want to step over it. So, I mean, I personally would be cool with it if he did extremely Beatle-y stuff. I mean, that's just me, so... Anyway, moving right along. Okay, so the next track on the album is called Laughable, and honest to God, this is gonna sound so mean again, but I thought with a title like that, it was gonna be another autobiographical song about how most of the world tends to view his career as laughable. Don't hit me, don't hit me. But it's not, that's the worst part. And it's just like, oh God, and that's what my brain went to first. I'm a bad fan, I'm a bad person. But no, instead we have something much more important here, or maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I'm like 99% positive that, lyrics of this song, listen to them again and just try and tell me that this song isn't an anti-Trump song. And possibly about the North Korean crisis as well, but actually might be more about that than just Trump. But yeah, the first few times through, over my head. It wasn't until I started writing down my notes for this video that really paying attention to the lyrics, it was like light bulb, ding, and Ringo fucking went political! Oh my god! Ringo, of all people, Mr. Peace and Love, freaking went political. Mr. Let's not write songs about politics because I don't want to upset anybody. He went political. I'm like, oh my god, wow, I never thought we'd see the day that would happen. So my mind is kind of blown that this is even a thing that exists, but, you know, I kind of love it. But yeah, the line specifically, it would be laughable if it weren't sad. I think that sums up a lot of what's happening in today's news, and that is exactly how he meant it. And I'm just like, damn. Alright, Ringo, you just fucking raked someone we all know over the hot coals. I'm just like, damn, that was unexpected, but kind of amazing. But yeah, so also a nice name drop of Come Together just randomly dropped into the lyrics. So yeah, there's a lot of very blatant Beatle references that he drops unexpectedly throughout the lyrics of this album, so it's kind of cool. Okay, so next song in is another one that is a title of another song that already definitely exists and I thought was maybe a cover of it, and it's not. But I thought for who all is on the album, it could be. But the song title is Show Me the Way. Yeah, it made me think of the Peter Frampton song, and since Frampton is on the album, I thought it has to be. And nope, although picturing Ringo singing that, you know, that would kind of be interesting to hear. Would it work? No, but I mean, would it be interesting? Fuck yeah. But anyway, goodness. what we do get appears to be a really sweet song that he definitely wrote for Barbara, which, I mean, that seems to be a common theme amongst some of his later albums, starting since about Vertical Man. I mean, if there was anything before that, I don't think I really took notice that that's what it was, but from Vertical Man on, I think there's been at least one song on each of his albums that, has been for or about Barbara, sometimes both. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't have the strongest vocals on the album or anything. A lot of his more tender, heartfelt songs, they often have that in common. And it's another thing where, just because I followed his solo career so much, I tend to notice it right away, that as soon as I hear that tone, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a cutesy song. I mean, other people would be like, oh, this song sucks, because, I mean, listen to his vocals. I'm like, no, it's cute. But, because it's not as strong vocally, it catches your attention and it forces you to listen to what's going on in the song and see how it still made it onto the album. At least that's my opinion. I could be wrong on that. But, something about it reminds me of the song I'm Yours from the Vertical Man album. Which, I know, I keep making comparisons to that album, but there's a lot about this album that makes me think of that album. But, I think what also is surprising to me is that one of these tracks made it so early into the album. Like, usually when he has these sort of songs on one of his solo albums, I mean, what am I saying, on his solo albums? She wasn't around in the Beatle years. Of course it's gonna be his solo albums, but when one of these sort of tracks makes it onto his albums, it's usually towards the end of it, if not the very last track. This one was only like 3 tracks in. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I have nothing against that. It was just unexpected. I guess Ringo's switching it up for this one. But yeah, am I the only one who noticed the underwater radar sound at the very, very ending outro of the song? Baby, is it a nod to Yellow Submarine? Like a really, really subtle one? Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of other references in, like, every song just about, so, I mean, not to Yellow Submarine, but to Beatles songs or other songs of his. Could be. I mean, he probably didn't want to be so blatant about it, but something subtle that people paying attention, they'd notice. At least that's my take on it. Okay, so the next track on here is called Speed of Sound, and I'm telling you, this album is like playing 6 Degrees of Separation, but this one, I mean, the title makes me think of Paul McCartney's solo album, Wings at the Speed of Sound, which I realize, granted, is an album, not a song, but still. Anyways, it goes a step further, because I noticed, well, not with Paul specifically, but with referencing other things. The drum beat at the intro of the song, again, try and tell me that that is not the same exact drum beat at the beginning of Got My Mind Set on You from George Harrison's solo career. Come on. You listen to it again, and like 2 phrases in, 2 measures in, I guess, you start singing, got my mind set on you, I got my mind set on you, and it fits perfectly, so I feel like it was totally intentional. It had to have been, but I mean, I totally see George's influence without even physically being there anymore. For how close he and Ringo were, that doesn't at all surprise me. So I mean, maybe that was what, Ringo's way, my brain thinks faster than I can speak, Ringo's way of keeping George included in his work even without him being here. I don't know. But, regardless, I think this is one of the catchiest songs on the whole album, not just because of that, even though of George's solo career, that is my favorite song of his, but, it's probably gotten the heaviest rotation from me out of the whole album. So, there's that one. And we have the additional bonus of Peter Frampton in his talk box in the middle of it, so that's pretty cool too. So, since we've established the whole what does this title make me think of game at this point, the next title being Standing Still, just go with me, it makes me think of Paul McCartney's album Standing Stone. Okay, we got it out of the way? Cool. Anyway, so this is the first track on this album that really made me go, what the fuck? Am I listening to Rascal Flatts or am I listening to Ringo Starr? Like, with zero warning, this album took a very jarring turn into country. And I'm gonna admit my own personal bias here. I am not a country fan. Like, at all. I make exception for Mike Nesmith because, I mean, he at least is more of, like, country/rock, not straight country, but his more twangy, straight-up country stuff, yeah, that's the stuff I generally skip. So, I mean, Yeah, my initial knee-jerk reaction to this, because of it very blatantly being country, was just kind of like, nope! Nope, can't be bothered with this one, although I did listen to it. I even gave it several tries, it just... no thanks. Also, just... why? Ringo, why? You're not a cowboy, I realize you came up with your name because you wanted to be a cowboy and you wanted something cowboy sounding, and the All-Star Band hadn't happened when it did, that he was going to start a country career, or was going to try anyway. Yeah, that was going to be a thing. Google it. I am not joking. This was a thing he wanted to do, and I feel like he's totally trying to live out his fantasy at least a little bit throughout this album, on and off. And I'll get more into that as we hit them, but throughout his career, he's like dabbled in it a little bit here, a little bit there, but usually only like a single track on an album that way. This one kind of scares me because he keeps going back to it. I'm like, oh, please tell me he's not about to do this, because, you know, that might be my jumping off point if he ever makes that exclusively his thing. So, yeah, that. But, goodness. It hasn't stopped him from trying, even though none of the times he's tried before has it ever worked. I mean, he even tried it a few times in the Beatle years. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. No matter how badly he wants it to work, it doesn't make it magically work just because he wants it to. I guess at his age, he doesn't really have to care what anyone else thinks of it. He can just record whatever the fuck he wants. He's Ringo. I mean, he certainly isn't hurting for money, so yeah, that. But this is one of those, and I can't speak for everybody, but I personally just found this track to be really cringy. And I mean, that aside, if you just pay attention to the lyrics are good. Just, I wish they weren't in the country style that they are. Just any style other than country would be good. But, the lyrics are pretty powerful. I interpreted them to be about depression and pulling yourself out of that. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he meant it to be about something else, but I took it as being about depression, how you cannot let it run your life and just spend your life in bed doing nothing. I mean, I guess you could, but his line, what was the line? Shit. The one thing I didn't write down in my notes. You don't mean nothing if you don't do nothing. You're just standing still. That's the line. That resonated with me big time as being about depression and how depression often robs that from you. So that, I don't know. And also, what was the other line that really grabbed my attention and made me feel like this is about depression? Well, I'll paraphrase it, I'm probably gonna butcher it, but basically about how you're the only one who can live your life, so if you don't, who will? I don't know, it just, like I said, it resonated with me as somebody who's dealt with lifelong depression, so. But yeah, this is just one of those things I've always really liked about Ringo's work, is that, I mean, even though he's been like a multimillionaire, super duper famous, one of the most famous people in the world, it didn't really go to his head. He's still ultimately, deep down, just a regular person who goes through the same troubles any of us do, and he gets what it's like. He tells it as it is. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He tells you shit like it is. From the human experience, he's not up in some ivory tower, but the way he does it, he does find a way to still put a positive, hopeful spin on it. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom all the time. There's a couple times he let it be that way, but usually it has a positive spin on it, and I like that. So, I mean, he in his life has definitely been there and lived it many times over, so if there's anybody qualified to write lyrics like that, I think it's Ringo. So, just saying, I wish it were any genre other than country, because it would probably be like my new favorite song if it were any other style, because the words just resonate so deeply for me. But I mean, I can still appreciate the lyrics for being what they are, just not necessarily have to listen to them, you know? But that's just me. So the next track is called King of the Kingdom, and lyrically, I take issue with this. I went all grammar Nazi with it, because this line right here, she is the king of the kingdom. No, Ringo, if she is a she, and I'm pretty sure you're talking about Barbara, then she is the queen of the kingdom, unless you married a man and were unaware she were a man all these years. Then she'd be the king, but, since I'm pretty sure, you know, I've seen nudie scenes in movies she's been in, she is definitely a she. That makes her the queen of the kingdom. Even if she's the one wearing the pants in your marriage, she is still the queen of the kingdom. I'm sorry, it just... and he repeats it so many times in the song, and I'm like cringing so hard every time he does it. I'm like, no, it's bad grammar, stop it. Oh my god. And then I cringe more because he refers to himself as the man with the plan. I'm like, could you have picked a more cliche thing? Just stop. Oh my god. It just... Oh, stop. I mean, even without this one being all countrified, not a huge fan of this one. Although, it did perk my interest back up a little bit that there was a name drop of Bob Marley and of One Love in it, and then realizing that I guess the song is vaguely reggae-ish. Not heavily, but vaguely. But still, just grammatically, it was just... basically the grammar equivalent of nails on the chalkboard. It's like, will you stop? I know that he didn't have very much schooling, but holy shit. Really, right now, I know damn well he knows the difference between a king and a queen. Come on, you lived in England how many years? You know of Queen, I almost said Victoria, Elizabeth, oh my god. Really, brain? I'm still waking up, apparently. You know of Queen Elizabeth, you even wrote a song about her. Therefore, you know the difference between a queen and a king. Just saying. Was this necessary? Were you just trolling us all on this one? Were you writing it that way just to make people like me crazy? Maybe. I could see him doing that. Like, really though? Oh my god. Stop! So, the next song on the album is called Electricity. And we have another really sudden genre shift here. But this one's a good one, though. So it takes a really sudden turn into blues, which, paying attention to the lyrics of the song, it does end up making sense. But initially, before, you know, there's any words or anything, I was like, is Ringo doing fucking blues? Okay. I'll let him try this one out, but I'll give it a shot. Weirder shit's happened, so, I mean, can't be as weird as Paul McCartney's Fireman albums or the Twin Freaks thing, can it? No! So, I mean, if I can sit through that, I can definitely give this a shot. So, there is one thing about it, though, that just, right off the bat, rubs me the wrong way and made me not like it as much as I otherwise could have. Autotune. I don't care who the fuck's using autotune. I hate autotune. Just... I miss when people had real voices. Now all the pop crap uses autotune and just... Ugh. And, sorry, I'm burping from the soda. I'm trying not to, but, this specifically, it's not just autotune, it's autotune with a little bit of reverb. So it just ends up sounding like, God, I'm gonna age myself here in internet years, but, who remembers Autotune the News? Yeah. This kind of comes off sounding like that. Thankfully, not for quite the entire song, but like the beginning of it especially really sounds like that. And I'm like, oh my god, why is this a thing, Ringo? Why did you think this was cool? I get that he's trying to appeal to probably a younger audience, but this is not the way to do it, holy shit. But, yeah. Anyway. Even though it was just one track that he did this on, it was still disappointing to hear Ringo, of all people, resort to using this tool that just is a tool I wish didn't exist because nobody ever uses it correctly. Just, ugh. Anyway, that aside, as long as he doesn't make it his new norm, I can live with it on one track, especially since it's not the entire track he does, it's just the beginning of it, but, that said. It's another autobiographical song of his. He does a lot of them on this album, actually. But, this one name drops Rory and the Hurricanes, which... Is he just really trying to remind everybody that he had a band before the Beatles, because I think like the last 3 albums, he has done a song either named Rory and the Hurricanes or mentioning Rory and the Hurricanes, and now we have another one. I'm like, we get it, Ringo. Rory and the Hurricanes was a thing and you were part of it. We get it, dude. But, yeah, he keeps writing them. I guess, for as brief as that period of his life was, it really meant a lot to him for how much he writes about him. But anyway, yeah, for, one of the lyrics in the song, I mistakenly thought that his line about the Gangster of Love was about Steve Miller, and I was like, oh shit, was Steve Miller on this album? I didn't realize it. And in my Googling about this, realized that, oh, there's another song called Gangster of Love by Johnny Guitar, who apparently was a blues performer who had a song titled that as well. So I was like, oh, that's why he keeps mentioning Johnny Guitar throughout the song and why it's a blues song. Oh shit. So yeah, it's just one of those many multiple layers that I think would go over a lot of people's heads unless they did the type of digging that I did in reading up on this, which most people aren't gonna do. It's Ringo, and most people don't care that much. It's, again, as mean as that sounds, it's just, I state it like it is, but yeah, I thought I'd mention it in case any of you guys were unaware of that being a thing, just so you know that, no, he's not talking about Steve Miller, he's talking about, you know, literally one of the people that's mentioned in the song over and over and over again, so that's a thing. So the next track on the album is called So Wrong for So Long, and that title makes me think of not one, but 2 other Ringo titles. It makes me think of Wrong All the Time and So Hard to Be True, which are kind of from around the same era, if not on the same album. I'd have to think about it more to remember which was on which, but unfortunately for me, it was another country song. Enough said. Pretty much that says it all for what my feelings were on this one. Okay, so next song on the album was called Shake It Up. So, keeping with the whole song associations thing, I thought of the Monkees song of the same title, which it very obviously is not, because none of these songs have been the same as the things they share a title with. But anyway, this track has a very 1950s rock and roll feel to it, slightly Chuck Berry, but I noticed what it sounds exactly like after about 48 hours of listening to this album. I finally was able to peg it because I was like, it sounds just like something. What does it sound like? It sounds like Matchbox. There you go. In case it was driving anybody else nuts, that is what it sounds just like. If you're unfamiliar with Ringo's cover of it, it's on the first of the 2 Past Masters Beatle albums. So you're welcome in case you were unaware of that, because it sounds just freaking like it. And thankfully I love that song, and I love this song. It just was like, it was making me so crazy trying to figure out what is it so reminiscent of. It could be anything. Yeah, I finally nailed it this morning while I was writing out the notes for this. So, anyway, yeah, that. So, now we finally reached the title track of the album, which is weird because this is where the new material on the album ends. I'll explain when I get to the others what I'm talking about, but for all intents and purposes, as far as I'm concerned, this is where the real album ends. Everything after this point is basically, like, bonus tracks, filler material, that sort of a thing. So it was a little disappointing that the actual, like, new stuff was as brief as it was, and then we only got 10 real, true new tracks, and 4 of them are just filler material. But, this one caught my attention because just like so many other songs on this album, it sounds just like something else that already exists, of Ringo's even. Who remembers the song he wrote when George Harrison died, Never Without You? Sounds just like it, like so similar. You can sing the words from that song with this, and up until like one line, it fits. It fits pretty perfectly. So, yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know if he realizes it was that similar or not, but it sounds just like it, and I heard from another person too, who also agrees that it sounded just like it, because before I even mentioned it, she mentioned it, so it's like, yeah, it's not my swaying anybody, it's that similar, which, I mean, it's not bad, it was a good song, just, he's essentially already done it, now he's just doing it slightly differently with different lyrics. So, you know, there's that. But, yeah, unfortunately it's where the new material, if you can call it that, ends, and now we enter the other part of the album. So I knew I lost one portion of this video before and re-recorded that. Didn't know I lost this one, so apologies for being back in my room, but my sister came home and she's being a little shit, so trust me, you don't want me to record in the other room. So anyway, where did we leave off? Ah, yes. We've now entered the other part of the album. The country part of the album. The demo part of the album, where these tracks are from 1989, when Ringo was going to start his foray into his country career, but then he started the All-Stars instead and didn't do that, so these tracks sat around untouched all these years until now, and he decided to release them, but also tried to build them up into something new, breathe some new life into them, but whether or not this was a good choice, you know, you gotta be the personal judge of that. But, the first one is Back Off Boogaloo, which I got very excited when I saw that this was on the album, because I love Back Off Boogaloo. Within seconds, I'm going, what the fuck over this one, because it sounds like he recorded it in a bathroom, or at least the intro does, before all the other stuff comes layering in, but it was just like, what? What? Like, this almost sounds like he was on some sort of a drunken bender and just trolling everybody at first, and then to find out that it's real. It's, like, not even just messing around. He actually decided to make this be a real thing. Dear God, why? I don't know, just everything about it doesn't really work. Even with him trying to, like, add a bunch to it, like, out of the last 4 tracks on this album, it sounds like he put the most work into this one. It's the saddest thing, but it still feels empty. Or hell, let's go with the lyrics of the actual song. You know, it just sounds wasted. So this really sucks that I have to re-record this portion of it, because it was the portion of it I didn't want to talk about the most, but apparently I hit record on this thing while I was looking at my notes and didn't realize it. And when I thought I hit play, I apparently was hitting stop from that. So I just talked at length for like probably 10 minutes for nothing. And now I get to do it again, although I probably won't even hit nearly as many of the same points because I already did it once. But the next redo, his words in the title track, in the title of the track, I should say, is Don't Pass Me By. Those of you who've been around this channel for a long time are no stranger to this topic, but those who found my channel just through trying to find a review of this album obviously don't know me or my life, but yeah, I'm gonna be brutally honest because I have personal bias when it comes to this song in general. I'm gonna tell you why, it's a huge trigger for me, but the perv uncle that used to molest me fucking loved this song. And he used to sing it badly, frequently, just to taunt me, because it was a Ringo song, and he knew I was a Ringo fan, and he knew he could ruin a thing for me, because he was an asshole. So that's really shitty in and of itself, but it's even shittier when you realize Ringo didn't have very many songs he sang during the Beatle years to begin with. There's, what, maybe like 7? Yeah, so to steal even one of those from me, that's really fucked up, but it is what it is. But to this day, that song comes on and I'm not expecting it, and it triggers the fuck out of me. So, in case I'm being unusually harsh on this one, that's why, because I just have forever bad connotations with that song. It's not Ringo's fault, it's not the song's fault, and I feel like a bad Ringo fan because it's the first one in the Beatle years that he wrote the lyrics of himself, and I can't even really fully appreciate it and barely had a point where I even could before it was wrecked for me, like almost immediately. So, yeah, that was a thing. So with this album, I saw on the track listing that it was there. I knew this, I processed this, I got to a point where I was okay with this, and I wasn't looking at the track listing or what was coming up next when I was listening to it the first time, so when it came on, I wasn't expecting it. I immediately hit the point of, fuck no, and turned that shit off. Had to go calm down and come back to it. And I still was very unokay with it, so the next several times that I re-listened to it, the album right at first, I kind of just skipped that one. But for the sake of this review, I had to include it because it's a part of the album, so personal bias or not, I had to try and tamp my own fucked up feelings down so I could objectively review this for you guys. So, yeah, much like the other ones, and in this portion of the album anyway, he countryfied it, but this one probably, it fits the most with this one out of the four. I mean, I still am not a fan of the genre, but I mean, it feels the least out of place here. I mean, I think I've even heard Ringo perform it live in a slightly country, like, not as much as this one, but slightly countryfied before. I don't even know if that's a word, but I keep using it anyway. But regardless, it probably is a word and it doesn't mean what I think it means. But in this case, I'm using it anyway. But regardless, I guess the idea has occurred to him for a long time to approach it that way. And who knows how long this demo's been sitting around. Well, I guess I do know. It's from 1989. But, he decided to fully flesh it out to really make it sound country. And he even got a backup singer for it. One problem. She sounds tone deaf. I don't know who she is. I feel really bad saying that, but honestly, it's so off-key and off-pitch that it's like fingernails on a blackboard. It's so bad. And just, it's like, stop it. I had to look up liner notes to see if it was Yoko. I honestly thought it was Yoko. It's that bad. It's not me being a bitch. It's that bad. So, yeah. As if that weren't bad enough, the outro of the song makes no sense. Because out of nowhere, he decides to turn it into Octopus's Garden. But only for a few seconds. Because reasons? My theory on that is probably because that and Don't Pass Me By were the only two Beatles songs, like, that he wrote himself without the other three during the Beatle years. Anything else he sang during those years, either one of them either one of them wrote or somebody else wrote, and it was just a cover. So those are like his two pride and joy songs from those years because he wrote them, so maybe this was his way of trying to showcase that. That is my only theory for why he would turn this song, of all things, into Octopus's Garden at the end. If it's not that, then I don't know. If you know, and it's not that, let me know what the reason is, because it's really weird, and it doesn't really work, and it doesn't fit, and just everything about this track just doesn't work, and honestly, I'm going to have zero guilt about adding it as a skipped track to a playlist, so whenever I listen to it on my computer anyway, I don't even have to hear this track, so that is that. So, we are almost at the end of the album now. I think this one's the second to last one, and this one is called You Can't Fight Lightning Redo. Yeah, that's like in parentheses at the end of these three. And it just felt super deja vu, because I was like, I've heard this title before. And I typed it into Spotify and nothing came up. I was like, well, this is really weird deja vu then, because I'm positive I've heard this title before somewhere. And I was trying to place, where the fuck do I know it from? So I googled it. Just to see if, is it a Ringo song I've forgotten about, or is it a song of somebody else's I've forgotten about? But I am positive I know this title. So I googled it, and this did solve where I believe I know it from. It was a bonus track on the Stop and Smell the Roses album, which would explain why it didn't come up as just a regular song on Spotify, because I guess of Ringo's albums on there, they didn't include any of the bonus tracks from anything, so that one's not on there. Fair enough. But just for comparison's sake, I wanted to refresh my memory on that one, what it sounded like, so I could compare this one to the old one, see, is it newer? I mean, is it is it better? Is it worse? And it got more interesting. Because as soon as I started playing it, I was like, oh, I know this song! I know this song! And then I figured I had to know it because of the version on Stop and Smell the Roses. But when I played the version from Stop and Smell the Roses, I was like, no, that's not it. I know another version of this song that sounds more similar to the one on this album, but it's different. I am positive of it. I have heard it. Where is it from? And I googled for over an hour this morning. I can't find it anywhere. I searched YouTube, I searched a shit ton of video sites, and it's like, what the hell kind of weird deja vu thing is this? Yeah, the only version I can find other than the one on this album is that bonus track version. So I'm like, then what the fuck other version am I thinking of? It's a track written by Ringo, so it's not even like a cover of somebody else's song I could be potentially mixing this up with. So what the hell? And prior to now, I believe it's only that one bonus track, so yeah, I don't know. It's not even like a well-known Ringo album to begin with, much less it being a bonus track, so even fewer people probably heard it than the original people who bought the album when it first came out, so I'm just like, where the crap could I have heard another version of this? I don't know, and it's making me fucking crazy, so please, if you know of this elusive other version of it, please tell me where it's from, because it's going to make me literally insane trying to remember what the hell I heard it on, because I know damn well there's at least one other version out there because I have heard it. Anyway, it gets more interesting because this is the one example of the bonus, well, I view them as bonus tracks on this album, that's actually better than its original, because in the original, the tune is very flat. I think it's around the time he went to rehab, so I'm not sure if it was just before or just after, but it was kind of like he wasn't even fully trying. Maybe that's why it only made it on as a bonus track and not a real album track. I don't know, but at least in the new version of it, it's a lot more melodic. There's more of a tune to it until like the very end of it, when it's much more similar to the original. So I don't know. It's weird though, but it's not bad at least. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just still tripping over the weird sense of deja vu I get over this freaking song and how positive I am that there's one more version of it that I know I've heard somewhere. So, you know, there's that. So, last track on the album is another version of Photograph. Now, oddly, the last three tracks all had in parentheses redo after them. This one doesn't. And I'm like, okay. It sounds very much in the same style as those other three. Why doesn't this one have redo after? I don't understand. Like, I don't know, what am I missing here? But, it's interesting to me that he would close the album with that of all things, much less that this would get a redo in this style. I mean, it doesn't entirely fail. Actually, after a while, it doesn't even sound that foreign to this particular song, which is weirder still to me because I've only ever heard that song done the one way, and to suddenly hear it with country flair added to it, and to not hate it, I'm like, oh, that's... huh. Okay. More interestingly, whoever sang backup on this sounds kind of like Dolly Parton, but it's not Dolly Parton, so it's like, oh, okay. Huh. Whatever. I mean, I don't have a lot of thoughts on this one. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. It's not my favorite. I'd rather go with the original version of it or any other version that's in the usual style, but I mean, it's not unlistenable. I can hang with this one at least. So, yeah, closing thoughts. I would say there's at least 2/3 of this album that I do genuinely like quite a bit, and I think are pretty solid. And if you happen to be a country fan, you might find the whole thing to be pretty solid. Just my own personal bias doesn't care for that other third so much, but it's not the worst thing ever, and I still think the ratio of 2/3 being good quality content, that's a lot better of a ratio than a lot of his newer albums have been, where maybe at best there's maybe 1 or 2 songs I liked off of them, and the rest of it I could totally take or leave. This one, there's only a third of it where I could take it or leave it. One track I could happily totally skip, but the other ones, I mean, I could listen to them. I mean, they're not great, but I mean, I could hang with it if I had to. But the other 2/3 are surprisingly good. So I'm like really hoping that maybe this is a sign that now his solo career might be back on the upswing towards better quality content again. I'm hoping. You just never know with Ringo what exactly you're gonna get on a solo album of his, because I'd say he's pretty versatile, but it's kind of the same handful of recycled ideas over and over again that he tends to use, and that's why most Ringo albums kind of have the same sound to them. They have the same feel to them. Again, depending on whether or not you're a Ringo fan, that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I'm a Ringo fan, so personally, I don't mind that. But yeah, just the last few handful of albums, it just was very lackluster. It feels like he's trying again, and this is the first one, I think, since the whole falling out with Mark Hudson, that's actually really been able to stand on its own, more or less. The other ones, you could tell how much he's floundering without having Mark Hudson to help him write the songs and to style the songs and this, that, and the other. This one's kind of proof that, you know what, he can get by without Mark Hudson's help if they never do bury the hatchet or anything. So there's that, which is definitely good to know, since I don't know at this point if they're ever going to, like, forgive each other for whatever the hell happened there. It's not my business to know whatever their falling out was over, but yeah, that. So, excuse me, since that's no longer a thing, Ringo's kind of left on his own trying to figure out how to do his solo albums without that additional assistance, and I think he's finally hitting his stride again. I mean, obviously there was a point before Mark Hudson was ever involved in his solo albums where he was able to get by with a little help from his famous friends. See what I did there? God, I'm a huge nerd. Anyway, and I feel like that's probably what helped him out big time here, is that he had some of his famous friends on here throughout the whole album that definitely helped shape it in a better way than, you know, the last few have. I honestly haven't looked that closely at the last few to see if he had anybody really noteworthy on those. I kind of get the feeling he didn't. But, yeah, it definitely helps him big time when they do. And that's why his all-star band is still a thing this many years later that he keeps putting together, because he does well with that sort of an environment. I just got distracted because I thought there was a bee in the room. No, it's outside the window. But he does really well with that sort of environment where it's not just him out there on his own. He's got other people who also know what they're doing to contribute to it, and together it creates a really cool thing. Now this this wasn't an All-Stars project or anything. I mean, yeah, Frampton was on one of the All-Star tours, but that aside, it wasn't one of those albums. He's done some albums like that, but this wasn't one of those. So, you know, just saying, I'm just still reeling. I'm still in shock that this album ended up being good, because I really didn't think it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be more of the same of what the last few have been, and I'm very happy to say that it's not. I'm very pleased that this one's actually pretty good. I apparently chose the right timing to want to start seeing him in concert again, I guess, you know, if his tour should swing out this way. So far, he's only released a handful of dates, so I don't know. I highly doubt that's the whole tour. He always does more than that. He just usually doesn't release them all at once. So I keep watching. I keep going back to the website to see if maybe anything else has been added, because I feel like he's definitely gonna swing out here, just since he lives in California now. Oftentimes that ends up towards the end, if not the very end, of the tour, since then he can just swoop back home. But, yeah, it makes sense, so. Anyway, I don't think I'm gonna give this album a number rating or anything, because I don't feel like I fairly can, but just in general, I think it's worth checking out, especially if you've appreciated some of Ringo's other solo works. If you're not a Ringo fan, I mean, yeah, you probably don't want to waste your time, since it is a Ringo album. If you don't like Ringo, you're not going to like his album. But if you are a Ringo fan, I do think it's worth the time of day to check it out. And if you don't want to throw the money at it, check it out on Spotify. It's free. You can do it through there, just, you know, to find out if it's something you want to throw your money at or not. I took a leap of faith on this one from that one dropped track early, and I'm actually very glad that I did. So, anyway. that is all I have to say for this one. So, as usual, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you're not already and you'd like to be, click subscribe, hit that bell icon so you never miss an upload, leave comments down below. Have any of you guys gotten Ringo's new album yet, or have even listened to it on Spotify? If so, let me know down in the comments your thoughts, or any other comparisons you may have made with this album that I missed. So, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And if you like what I do here on this channel and you want to help support it, donation link, as always, is down in the description. So, anyways, till next time, bye!